What's up guys, it's Johnny Candido of Candido Training
HQ.
I want to talk to you guys about how to determine your deadlift stance width. Now this isn't a matter of one stance width that's optimal for everybody. Obviously that's just not going to be the case. Rather it's a matter of picking your style and then doing that style correctly. And this comes down to a couple of factors. The first one is elbow position and grip width. Now when we look at grip width independently of any other variables, we would say we want the longest arms essentially possible by having the most vertical grip width, having it directly underneath your shoulders. This will give you the best leverage off the floor. So that's what's ideal, not considering anything else. However, there are a couple problems. First of all, it's the start of the knurling on your barbell typically is not directly underneath your shoulders, especially if you're a smaller lifter or a lifter with narrower shoulders like myself. Then just gripping at the start of the knurling, that's going to force your grip a little bit out. Notice I also mentioned elbow position independently of grip width. And this is because this is actually related to an older video I did, a quick tip video on tightening your lats for the deadlift. And in it, I say to essentially tuck your elbows in. And it's sort of like when you bench press, you're trying to break the bar. You're trying to tuck your elbows in, which helps you depress your shoulders down because it's in and back towards you. So what you'll see when you do bring your elbows in tight is this kind of affects your stance width because it pushes your knees in a little bit, gives you less space given your grip width. So the narrower the grip width and the more you bring your elbows in tight and close towards you, the more you're limiting how far your knees can be pushed out. One of the best examples of someone who's setting up in tight well is Paul Wynn, and he deadlifted 740 pounds, and he's around 165 pounds, which is, he's a world record holder for that weight class. He's an amazing lifter, and you can tell he's very efficient. As he sets up, he gets very tight, and you see that he brings his elbows are pretty in close to him. You can see his stance width is pretty narrow, as his knees don't have a lot of room to flare out, as I said earlier. So what this means is if your stance is a little bit too wide, it can force your elbows out a bit and you can't get as tight in your setup, and it can also force the bar a little bit forward if you actually are, your knees are almost getting in the way of pulling your elbows back. Okay, so outside of grip width and elbow position, then we have the actual angle of your feet. And this is very important because if you're trying to angle your feet more outwards, then you need to take a narrower deadlift stance. Because what will happen is if you're taking a moderate to wider stance relative to your grip width and you angle your feet out, you're simply not going to be able to track your knees in line with your toes because once again, your elbows will simply block where your knees can travel. It'll force them in. So what this means is if you are taking a moderate stance to make sure your feet are pointing more straight forward, and then you can have freedom if you do take a narrow stance width as far as you can have them point a little bit more forward or you can have them point out because you just have more room to work with. Okay, so those are really the basic variables you're working with. From there, you can decide what's worth it for you. Smaller lifters do obviously have more room because they are just built smaller. So they are usually able to grip at the start of the knurling. And it's actually a big weakness of bigger lifters that they're forced to grip wider because they are so large. Their thighs are so big, they're not as mobile, their gut kind of gets in the way, that they have to have a wider stance and then a wider grip. So this is why you'll see a lot of the heavier weight class lifters do squat more than they deadlift, even the ones who do lift raw. So in my opinion, the most effective way to make sense of this all and to find your correct style is to simply start with a snatch grip deadlift and then notice the stance width that you naturally get into. And then from there, try to make a compromise between that and then getting obviously the most narrow grip width that you possibly can. Have you seen this video?
accentuating his ass. He wants to draw attention to his ass and everything that he does. He wants us, let's be real here, folks, he wants us to fuck his ass.
Do you think he realizes that those glute scenes represent something deeper than just two lifeless lumps of man meat? Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think he does. Oh, my bad. Yeah, I don't think he got the message, but I don't mean to be cheeky when I'm saying this. A lot of people are naturally going to be behind, especially when you're dealing with multifaceted topics. And I really do mean multifaceted, emphasis on the ass, if you know what I'm saying, John. Okay, so now for why I specifically narrowed my deadlift stance a little bit here recently. The thing is that I actually need my knees outside of my feet a little. I'm stronger in that position where I'm putting a lot of pressure on the outside of my feet. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking the narrowest grip I can, I'm getting my elbows in as much as I can to lock my lats in, and then my knees are out touching my elbows still, but it's just that I'm bringing my feet in and keeping that knee position the same. And this is why I'm not pointing my feet outwards, because that would once again just take away from my ability to push on the outside of my feet. And by doing this, I actually feel more tension on my glutes now than I did before. But that's it, guys. Make sure to like the video, support the channel, subscribe if you haven't already, and thanks for watching, guys. Peace.
Man, fuck a shooting star. Biggie died, they shot a star. Who you know in West LA? Bring that ruckus to MA. Jeez.
Emphasis on the ass, if you know what I'm saying, Johnnies.